Stop what you're doing. Right now. Think back to the last time reality hit you with something so perfectly timed, so eerily aligned, that it gave you chills. A song that played at the exact moment you needed it. A stranger who answered the question you hadn't even spoken aloud. The same numbers following you everywhere like whispers from another realm. You felt it that electric moment, like the universe paused, looked straight at you and winked. But what did you do? You laughed, shrugged, called it a coincidence, because that's what you've been trained to do. What if I told you those coincidences weren't random? What if they were messages from an intelligence so vast, so precise, it makes your smartphone look like a broken calculator? There's a secret language being spoken around you every day. It's written in timing, in patterns, in people, in pain. Ancient mystics called it divine communication. Today, quantum physicists are calling it something else, entanglement. And here's the kicker. The moment you start paying attention, the universe starts speaking louder. But before we go further, you need to understand why you were taught to ignore these signs in the first place. Because none of this is an accident, it's by design. Picture this, you're born into this world with a superpower. Not the ability to fly or read minds, but something far more profound. The ability to see the invisible threads that connect everything. You could sense when something important was about to happen. You could feel the rhythm of the universe pulsing through every moment. But here's where the story gets dark. The system, and I mean the entire educational, social, and cultural machine, couldn't afford to let you keep this power. Because people who see the patterns, who trust the signs, who follow the synchronicities, they're impossible to control. So they built a prison for your mind. They called it education, but it was really indoctrination. They taught you that only what could be measured, weighed, and categorized was real. They told you that your intuition was just wishful thinking. They convinced you that the universe was nothing more than a cold, mechanical clock, ticking away without purpose or intelligence. And you bought it. We all did. They turned you into a sleepwalker, stumbling through life believing that everything was random, that meaning was something you had to create out of thin air, that you were alone in an indifferent cosmos. But what if I told you that everything you've been taught about reality is a lie? Think back to when you were 5 years old. Really think back. Remember how you used to notice everything. How you'd see faces in clouds, patterns in shadows. How you'd somehow know when grandma was going to call before the phone rang. Remember how you'd play games where you'd make wishes and then watch for signs that they were coming true. How you'd talk to animals and plants like they could hear you. How you'd have those moments where everything felt connected, where you could almost see the invisible web linking everything together. That wasn't imagination. That was you operating at full capacity before they dimmed your lights. You were born with what mystics call second sight, the ability to perceive beyond the physical realm. You could sense the energy of people, places, and situations. You could feel when something was meant to be, or when you were being guided towards something important. But then they started the programming. That's not real, they said. Stop being so silly. You're just imagining things. Only babies believe in magic. One by one, they convinced you to turn off your supernatural abilities. They made you ashamed of your gifts. They taught you to question everything you felt and trust only what they told you was logical. And slowly, painfully, you learned to shut down the most powerful part of yourself. School wasn't just about teaching you facts. It was about teaching you how to think, or more accurately, how not to think. They created a mental prison so subtle, so pervasive, that you didn't even realize you were being locked away. Mathematics became about rigid formulas, not sacred geometry. Science became about memorizing facts, not exploring mysteries. History became about dates and names, not understanding the patterns that shape civilizations. They taught you that the world was made of separate, disconnected parts, that cause and effect were the only forces at work, that randomness ruled everything. But here's what they didn't tell you. Some of the greatest minds in history, Einstein, Tesla, Jung, all understood that reality was far more mysterious than the textbooks suggested. They knew that consciousness played a fundamental role in shaping what we experience. They knew that everything was connected by invisible threads of meaning and purpose. Tesla could literally feel the electromagnetic fields around him. Einstein's greatest discoveries came not from logic but from intuitive flashes. Jung spent his entire career documenting the meaningful coincidences that revealed the hidden order beneath apparent chaos. These weren't crazy people. These were visionaries who refused to let the system limit their perception of what was possible. Let me tell you about the moment that changed everything. It was 1920, and Carl Jung was sitting in his office with a patient who was describing a dream about a golden scarab beetle. As she spoke, Jung heard a gentle tapping at the window behind him. He turned around and saw a rare scarab beetle, the exact same type the woman had been dreaming about, tapping against the glass, trying to get in. The odds of this happening were astronomically small, but Jung didn't dismiss it as coincidence. He saw it for what it was, a meaningful connection between the inner world of the psyche and the outer world of physical reality. He called it synchronicity, and with that word he opened a door that the establishment has been trying to close ever since. Jung realized that these meaningful coincidences weren't random flukes. They were evidence of a deeper order, a hidden intelligence that connected all things. He understood that the boundary between inner and outer was an illusion, that consciousness and reality were two sides of the same coin. But here's what really threatened the powers that be. Jung discovered that the more conscious you became, the more synchronicities you experienced. The more you paid attention to the patterns, the more the patterns revealed themselves. In other words, awareness was the key to unlocking the universe's secret language. The universe doesn't speak English. It doesn't speak any human language. It speaks in symbols, in timing, in impossible coincidences that make your heart skip a beat. It speaks in the song that plays exactly when you need to hear it, in the book that falls open to the perfect page, in the stranger who says exactly what you needed to hear, in the repeating numbers that follow you everywhere until you can't ignore them anymore. This isn't some new age fantasy. This is quantum physics. This is the cutting edge of consciousness research. This is what happens when you start paying attention to the space between the notes, the pause between the words, the silence between the thoughts. Every spiritual tradition throughout history has recognized this language. The ancient Egyptians called it the voice of the gods. Hindu mystics spoke of divine timing. Indigenous cultures around the world understood that nature itself was constantly communicating with those who knew how to listen. But our modern world has forgotten how to hear it. We've been deafened by the noise of technology, the chatter of social media, the constant bombardment of information that keeps us trapped in our heads instead of present in the moment. Here's where it gets really interesting. Modern science is finally catching up to what mystics have known for thousands of years. Consciousness doesn't just observe reality, it participates in creating it. Quantum physics has shown us that the very act of observation changes what we observe. The famous double-slit experiment proves that particles behave differently when they're being watched. The observer effect is real, and it's revolutionary. But it goes deeper than that. Your thoughts, your emotions, your beliefs, they're not just electrical activity in your brain. They're frequencies, vibrations that interact with the quantum field of pure potential that underlies all reality. When you think about someone, you're not just having a private mental experience, you're sending out an energetic signal that can literally influence the probability of that person appearing in your life. When you focus on a particular outcome, you're not just daydreaming, you're collapsing wave functions, choosing which timeline to experience. This is why synchronicities multiply when you start paying attention to them. Your awareness itself becomes a magnet, attracting the very experiences you're focused on. Your brain has a built-in synchronicity detector, and you probably don't even know it exists. It's called the reticular activating system, or RAS, and it's one of the most powerful tools for transformation that you possess. The RAS is a network of neurons in your brainstem that acts like a filter, determining what information reaches your conscious awareness. It's constantly scanning your environment, looking for things that match your current focus and beliefs. Have you ever noticed that after you buy a new car, you suddenly start seeing that same model everywhere? The cars were always there, but your RA wasn't filtering them in until they became relevant to you. The same thing happens with synchronicities. When you start believing in them, expecting them, and looking for them, your RAS begins to notice patterns and connections that were always there but previously invisible to you. This isn't just wishful thinking or confirmation bias. This is your brain's natural ability to tune into the frequencies of meaning and significance that surround you every moment of every day. But the RAS is just the beginning. There's another player in this game, one that's far more powerful and mysterious, your subconscious mind. While your conscious mind is focused on the immediate tasks of daily life, your subconscious is processing millions of bits of information, making connections, and orchestrating experiences in ways that seem almost magical. Your subconscious doesn't just store memories, it's constantly scanning the environment for opportunities, patterns, and possibilities that align with your deepest desires and intentions. It's like having a personal assistant who works 24/7 behind the scenes, arranging meetings, coordinating events, and setting up coincidences that serve your highest good. This is why people who set clear intentions and maintain a positive expectation of good things happening tend to experience more synchronicities. Their subconscious mind is actively working to create the conditions for meaningful coincidences to occur. But we're not just isolated individuals creating our own little reality bubbles. We're all connected through what biologist Rupert Sheldrake calls the morphic field, an invisible network of shared information and influence that connects all living things. Every thought you think, every emotion you feel, every intention you set, doesn't just affect you, it ripples out into this field, influencing the thoughts, feelings, and experiences of others. And their thoughts and feelings influence you in return. This is why certain ideas seem to emerge simultaneously in different parts of the world. It's why scientific discoveries often happen in parallel, with multiple researchers arriving at the same conclusions at the same time. It's why cultural movements can spread like wildfire, seemingly overnight. And it's why your personal synchronicities often involve other people. When you're in alignment with your authentic path, you naturally start attracting others who are vibrating at a similar frequency. The morphic field brings together people, circumstances, and opportunities that serve the highest good of all involved. Now let's talk about why this knowledge has been suppressed. Why aren't they teaching this in schools? Why do mainstream scientists dismiss synchronicities as mere coincidence? Why does the medical establishment ignore the mounting evidence for consciousness-based healing? The answer is simple: control. A population that believes in randomness is easy to manipulate. People who think they're powerless victims of circumstance will turn to external authorities for guidance, protection, and meaning. They'll work jobs they hate, buy things they don't need, and follow leaders they don't trust, all because they believe they have no other choice. But people who understand synchronicities, people who recognize that they're co-creators of their reality, people who trust their intuition and follow the signs, they're impossible to control. They don't need permission to change their lives. They don't need experts to tell them what's true. They don't need institutions to give them meaning. They have direct access to the intelligence of the universe itself. That's why the system has worked so hard to convince you that synchronicities are just coincidences, because the moment you start paying attention to them, you begin to wake up. You begin to remember who you really are and what you're truly capable of. For most people, the awakening happens gradually. You start noticing small things, repeating numbers, meaningful songs, unlikely encounters. At first you brush them off, but they keep happening, and they keep getting more obvious. Then comes the moment when you can't explain it away anymore. Maybe you're facing a major life decision, and suddenly every billboard, every conversation, every random page you flip to in a book is giving you the same message. Maybe you're thinking about someone from your past, and they call you out of the blue after years of no contact. That's when you realize, this isn't random, this is intelligent, this is deliberate, this is the universe trying to get your attention. And once you accept that, everything changes. You stop feeling like you're stumbling through life blindfolded. You start feeling like you're part of something greater, something that's actively working to guide you toward your highest potential. The signs don't just comfort you, they challenge you. They push you to grow, to take risks, to step outside your comfort zone. They nudge you away from what's familiar and safe toward what's authentic and alive. One of the most common ways the universe communicates is through numbers. Not just any numbers, but specific sequences that appear repeatedly in your life until you can't ignore them anymore. 1111 is probably the most famous, but there are many others. 322, 333, 444, 555. Each sequence carries its own vibrational frequency, its own message, its own invitation to pay attention. But here's what most people don't understand. These aren't just random patterns your brain is creating. Numbers are the fundamental language of the universe. Everything in existence operates according to mathematical principles, from the spiral of galaxies to the rhythm of your heartbeat. When you start seeing repeating numbers, it's like receiving a text message from the cosmos. The universe is saying, hey, you're in a moment of alignment, pay attention, something important is happening. Ancient mystics understood this. Pythagoras taught that numbers were the keys to understanding the divine order of creation. The Kabbalah uses numerology to decode the hidden meanings in sacred texts. Even modern scientists recognize that mathematical constants like pi and the golden ratio appear throughout nature in ways that seem almost intentional. Sometimes synchronicities come in the form of people, strangers who appear at exactly the right moment with exactly the right message. These aren't random encounters. They're what spiritual teachers call divine appointments, meetings orchestrated by the universe itself. Maybe it's the person sitting next to you on the plane who happens to work in the exact field you're trying to break into. Maybe it's the cashier who makes an offhand comment that perfectly answers the question you've been wrestling with. Maybe it's the old friend who reaches out just when you need their unique perspective. These people aren't necessarily aware that they're being used as messengers. They're just following their own intuition, their own synchronicities, their own path. But somehow, Mysteriously, your paths cross at precisely the moment when you need each other most. This is the web of connection that Jung wrote about, the invisible network of meaning that links all souls together. When you're in alignment with your authentic path, you naturally attract others who are meant to support your journey. Here's something they don't tell you about synchronicities. They don't always feel good. Sometimes the universe's message is that your current path isn't serving you anymore. Sometimes the signs are pointing toward a major change that scares you to your core. These are the synchronicities that strip away your illusions, that force you to confront uncomfortable truths about yourself and your life. The job that becomes unbearable, the relationship that suddenly reveals its toxicity, the health crisis that demands you slow down and reassess your priorities. These aren't punishments, they're course corrections. They're the universe's way of saying, you've gotten off track, it's time to come home to yourself. The most profound synchronicities often happen during our darkest moments, when we're at the end of our rope and don't know which way to turn. That's when the signs become impossible to ignore, when the universe pulls out all the stops to get our attention. Working with synchronicities requires a fundamental shift in how you approach life. Instead of trying to control outcomes, you learn to trust the process. Instead of demanding certainty, you learn to dance with mystery. This isn't about becoming passive or giving up your agency. It's about recognizing that there's an intelligence at work that's far greater than your individual will, and learning to cooperate with it rather than fight against it. It's like learning to sail. You can't control the wind, but you can learn to work with it, to read the signs, to adjust your sails accordingly. The skilled sailor doesn't fight the storm. They dance with it. The same is true for synchronicities. You can't force them to happen, but you can learn to recognize them when they do. You can't control what messages you receive, but you can learn to interpret them wisely. So how do you actually work with synchronicities? How do you tune into this cosmic communication system? First, you have to slow down. Synchronicities happen in the present moment, but most of us are so busy living in our heads, planning the future, rehashing the past, that we miss the signs right in front of us. Meditation is one of the most powerful tools for developing synchronicity awareness. When you quiet your mind and drop into the present moment, you become available to receive the universe's messages. You start noticing subtleties that you missed before. Second, you need to start paying attention to patterns. Keep a synchronicity journal. Write down the meaningful coincidences, the repeating numbers, the significant encounters. Over time, you'll start to see themes emerging, messages becoming clear. Third, you need to learn to trust your intuition. That little voice inside you that says, pay attention to this, or this is important. That's your inner guidance system. The more you honor it, the stronger it becomes. When you start following synchronicities, something magical happens. They multiply. It's like pulling on a thread that unravels an entire tapestry of meaning. One sign leads to another, which leads to another, which leads to a complete transformation of your life. You meet someone who introduces you to someone else, who offers you an opportunity that leads to a conversation that sparks an idea that changes everything. This is because synchronicities aren't isolated events. They're part of a larger pattern, a grand design that's constantly unfolding. When you start cooperating with this design, you become part of the flow rather than fighting against it. Not all synchronicities are pleasant. Sometimes they point to aspects of yourself that you'd rather not acknowledge. Sometimes they reveal truths about your relationships, your career, your lifestyle, that are difficult to accept. These challenging synchronicities are just as important as the pleasant ones. They're the universe's way of helping you grow, of showing you where you need to heal, where you need to let go, where you need to step into greater authenticity. The key is to approach these difficult messages with curiosity, rather than resistance. What is this trying to teach me? What am I being asked to release? What new version of myself is trying to emerge? As you develop your synchronicity awareness, you begin to live differently. You stop forcing outcomes and start flowing with what wants to emerge. You stop trying to control everything and start trusting the intelligence that's guiding you. This doesn't mean you become passive or give up your goals. It means you learn to hold your intentions lightly, to remain open to possibilities you hadn't considered, to trust that the universe might have something even better in mind than what you originally wanted. You start making decisions based on alignment rather than fear. You choose the path that feels most authentic, rather than the one that looks safest. You trust that if you're meant to be somewhere, the way will open up for you. Modern physics is revealing that the universe is far stranger and more interconnected than we ever imagined. At the quantum level, particles can be in multiple states simultaneously until they're observed. They can be instantly connected across vast distances. They can influence each other in ways that seem to violate the laws of time and space. This quantum field of pure potential is what mystics have always called the source. the void, the field of infinite possibility. It's the level of reality where all possibilities exist simultaneously, where consciousness and matter dance together in an eternal creative partnership. When you align with synchronicities, you're tapping into this field. You're participating in the fundamental creative process of the universe. You're becoming a conscious co-creator of your reality. We're living in a time of unprecedented awakening. More people than ever before are experiencing synchronicities, having spiritual experiences, questioning the materialist worldview that has dominated Western culture for centuries. This isn't an accident. We're at a crucial point in human evolution, a moment when we must choose between continuing down the path of separation and destruction, or stepping into a new paradigm of unity and creation. The old ways of thinking, that we're separate from nature, that consciousness is just a byproduct of brain activity, that the universe is a meaningless machine, these beliefs are collapsing under the weight of their own contradictions. In their place, a new understanding is emerging. We're remembering that we're not separate from the universe. We are the universe, experiencing itself through billions of unique perspectives. We're remembering that consciousness is fundamental, that meaning is built into the fabric of reality itself. Not everyone will resonate with this message. Some people are so invested in the old paradigm, so attached to their role as victims of circumstance, that they'll resist any suggestion that they have the power to co-create their reality. These people will dismiss synchronicities as coincidence, intuition as wishful thinking, and consciousness as mere brain activity. They'll cling to their materialist beliefs even as their own lives become evidence of something greater at work. This resistance isn't personal, it's psychological. The ego mind feels threatened by the idea that there's something greater than itself at work. It would rather maintain the illusion of control, even if that control is making it miserable. But you don't need their permission to experience synchronicities. You don't need their validation to trust your intuition. You don't need their approval to live in alignment with your authentic path. Ultimately, it comes down to a choice. You can continue to live as if you're a victim of random circumstances, buffeted by forces beyond your control, hoping that luck will smile upon you. Or you can step into the role you were born to play, that of a conscious co-creator, actively participating in the unfolding of your destiny. The first path is safe, predictable, and ultimately empty. The second path is uncertain, challenging, and infinitely alive. If you choose the second path, you'll start noticing that the universe is constantly communicating with you. You'll see that every experience, every encounter, every moment is pregnant with meaning and possibility. You'll realize that you're not just a passive observer of life, but an active participant in the greatest adventure ever conceived. You're a unique expression of the universe's infinite creativity, and your life is your masterpiece. When you start trusting synchronicities, your entire life begins to transform. Opportunities that you never could have imagined start appearing. People who are perfectly aligned with your path start showing up. Resources that you need become available at just the right moment. This isn't magic, it's the natural result of aligning with the flow of the universe. When you stop swimming against the current and start moving with it, everything becomes easier. Doors open, paths appear, the way forward becomes clear. But here's the beautiful paradox. The more you trust the process, the less you need to control the outcome. The more you surrender to the intelligence that's guiding you, the more empowered you become. So here's my invitation to you. Start paying attention. Start noticing the patterns, the signs, the synchronicities that are already happening in your life. Start trusting your intuition. Start following the breadcrumbs that the universe is leaving for you. Keep a synchronicity journal. Meditate regularly. Ask for guidance and then listen for the response. Trust that you're exactly where you need to be, doing exactly what you're meant to be doing. Most importantly, act on the signs you receive. Don't just notice them, follow them. Take the risks they're pointing toward. Have the conversations they're encouraging. Make the changes they're suggesting. Because here's the truth. The universe isn't just sending you messages for entertainment. It's trying to guide you toward your highest potential, your greatest contribution, your most authentic expression. Imagine a world where everyone understood synchronicities, where people made decisions based on inner wisdom rather than external pressure, where we trusted the intelligence of the universe rather than trying to control everything through force. Imagine a world where meaningful coincidences were recognized as the universe's way of guiding us toward our highest good, where we saw every encounter, every opportunity, every challenge as part of a larger pattern of growth and evolution. This isn't a fantasy, it's a possibility, and it starts with individuals like you choosing to wake up, to pay attention, to trust the process that's already unfolding in your life. Here's the ultimate truth about synchronicities. They're not messages from some external deity or cosmic force. They're messages from the deepest part of yourself, the part that's connected to everything, that knows everything, that is everything. You are not separate from the universe. You are the universe experiencing itself through the unique lens of your individual consciousness. The synchronicities are your own higher wisdom, your own inner guidance system, your own connection to the infinite intelligence that animates all things. When you start recognizing this, everything changes. You stop feeling like a victim of circumstances and start feeling like the author of your own story. You stop waiting for permission and start creating the life you truly want. You realize that you've always had the power, you just forgot how to use it. The synchronicities are simply reminding you of who you really are and what you're truly capable of. So what will it be? Will you continue to live as if you're separate from the intelligence that created you? Will you keep dismissing the signs as coincidence? Will you stay asleep to the miracle that's unfolding around you every single day? Or will you wake up? Will you start paying attention? Will you begin to trust the process that's been guiding you all along? The choice is yours. But know this, the universe is rooting for you. It's been dropping hints, leaving clues, arranging synchronicities, and orchestrating opportunities since the day you were born. All you have to do is say yes. All you have to do is trust. All you have to do is follow the signs. The path is already there. The synchronicities are already happening. Your authentic life is already trying to emerge. The only question is, are you ready to step into it? This isn't the end of the story, it's the beginning. Every word you've heard, every insight you've gained, every moment of recognition you've experienced while watching this, they're all synchronicities themselves. You found this message at exactly the right moment. You needed to hear these words at exactly this point in your journey. The universe orchestrated this entire experience to remind you of who you really are and what you're truly capable of. So what's your next step? What synchronicity is waiting for you to notice? What sign is the universe preparing to send you? Pay attention, trust the process, follow the signs. Your authentic life is waiting for you to remember it into existence, and the universe is conspiring to help you succeed. The question isn't whether synchronicities are real. The question is, what are you going to do about it? The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. The journey of 1,000 synchronicities begins with a single moment of awareness. That moment is now. That step is yours to take. Welcome to your awakening. Welcome to your authentic life. Welcome to the conversation you've been having with the universe all along. Now it's time to start listening. If you've watched this far, it's not an accident. You're here because you're ready. Ready to step out of the illusion of separation and into the truth of your connection to all that is. Ready to stop living as a victim of circumstances and start living as a co-creator of your reality. The synchronicities in your life aren't random. They're not meaningless. They're not coincidences. They're love letters from the universe, written in the language of perfect timing, meaningful encounters, and impossible alignments. They're your invitation to remember who you really are. They're your call to come home to yourself. The question isn't whether you believe in synchronicities. The question is whether you're brave enough to believe in yourself. The universe is waiting for your answer. What will it be? This is your moment. This is your invitation. This is your synchronicity. What will you do with it? Remember, every ending is a new beginning. Every synchronicity is a doorway. Every moment is a choice. Choose wisely. Choose consciously. Choose authentically. The universe is listening, and so are you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being open to the possibility that life is far more magical than you've been told. Now go forth and live it. The synchronicities are waiting, and so is your authentic life. Trust the process. Follow the signs. Remember who you are. The universe is cheering you on, every single step of the way. If this message cracked open something in you, stay connected with this channel. Hit subscribe and like this video, because I'm going to keep bringing you more transformative insights like this for your awakening. Pay attention to what happens next. The universe has more to show you. There are no coincidences, only synchronicities waiting to be recognized.